Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Grossman. Welcome to another edition of Ask the Atlas Society. I am so thrilled to be here today with Megan Masten. Megan, I miss you. We were supposed to get together at Sacramento State.
I know. I'm so sad about that too. It was all planned out. It was only a week ahead, but it's okay.
Yes.
We're here.
Exactly. So, necessity being the mother of invention, and Ayn Rand being a mother of inspiration to both Megan and I. Megan is a senior in business at Sacramento State. She's also the head of a very active Sacramento State Turning Point chapter, and Turning Point, of course, has been a wonderful partner with the Atlas Society in promoting the moral defense of capitalism that's so necessary today. So, hey, Megan, I hear you have some questions.
Yes, and I have a whole bunch. I was told to condense them a little bit. So, number one, a lot of people are just want to know at my chapter, what is objectivism? Like just a basic definition for them.
Well, Ayn Rand's philosophy, objectivism, in essence, is the concept of man as a heroic being with his own happiness as the moral purpose of his life, with productive achievement as his noblest activity, and reason as his basic means to survival. Ayn Rand was once asked in a meeting with publishers if she could describe her philosophy while standing on one foot, which she did, and essentially said, I won't stand on one foot at the moment because I'm sitting and my skirt is slit too high. Metaphysics, objective reality, epistemology, reason, ethics, rational self-interest, politics, laissez-faire capitalism, and aesthetics, romanticism. So that is essentially it. She believed that that there is a reality, that we can know it, that our reason, we must rely upon our reason in order to understand it, to integrate it, and that we should, in a very basic sense, reject the idea that we exist only as a means to any other greater good, that we exist as men and women as ends in and of ourselves. I think that is, particularly worth reminding ourselves sometimes as women, because, we can be very nurturing. We're kind of cultivated to be nurturers. And it's important for us to remember that we have a right to our own happiness, and that we should not allow ourselves to be sacrificed to somebody else, nor should we seek to sacrifice others to our own ends.
And I that's an incredible definition, first off. And I think it brings up a really good point nowadays that we see, which is the focus on the individual versus a focus on supporting others, right? And I think in essence, that is one of the biggest arguments for socialism, is that it's best for the greater good. So what do you think takes precedent, the individual or the group, and why?
Well, that is the fundamental question. And I think it's important to remember how we are in the situation that we came to today. First of all, let's focus on the positive side. How is it possible that we actually have this technology? How is it possible that we actually have some semblance of a supply chain that's continuing to operate? That was not because of socialism. That was because of capitalism. That was because of individual entrepreneurs. That is because of people who decided to invest in those businesses. That is what capitalism is about. So, at the same time, we're not anarchists. We do believe in the rule of law. We believe that the law is there to protect us as individuals. We are living through a crisis. And Ayn Rand did say that when you are faced with a epidemic for which there is no cure, that it is responsible to quarantine people because they could pose a threat to other individuals by infecting them. So, but I've also lived through not quite an epidemic like this, but I've lived through a few disasters in my own lifetime, including, fires, which destroyed, hundreds of homes in my community, including my own home. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, I don't need a philosophy book or a novel to tell me this, that not only did government contribute to the circumstances which made such a disaster possible through, in that case, environmental regulations, and huge pensions for government workers that sucked resources away from frontline responses. But then also just in terms of the response, after I lost everything, I wasted critical time thinking, oh, the government's going to help me, right? They've got all these FEMA trucks everywhere. They're going to help me. Oh, there's SBA loans. Maybe I can get some assistance. No, I wasted valuable time. I was running out of money. I didn't have a lot to rebuild by thinking that government was there to help. And this is a completely different crisis. But because of that personal experience, I prepared. I had a lot of supplies. I knew that whether it was, a fire, which was what I am expecting, or another kind of crisis, that I needed to be prepared, and that I needed to rely on my own agency. At the same time, I also took all of that toilet paper and I put it in my car and I drove up here to be with my parents here in San Francisco because I knew that they would need help. That's not a sacrifice. It would be a sacrifice for me not to do that. It would be a sacrifice for me to do that and drive to the middle of nowhere and give, the toilet paper to people who didn't prepare and who, aren't necessarily in my life. So, and particularly if that came at the expense of doing something for my family. I go to Shabbat online now, Zoom on Friday, and I go to services. I'm not doing that as a sacrifice. I don't particularly enjoy it. Oh my God, I hope Rabbi Schwartz, you're not listening, but I do it to show up for a community that's been there for me in times of crisis and in times of need. So, I think we need to be very, very careful about the ethics of this, because if you say it's okay to sacrifice, I think one of your other questions was, why is this philosophy relevant to your generation? Why is it important to believe that you have the right to exist? Why is it important to insist upon individual identity and to reject the collective identity? Well, because your generation is being sacrificed right now. I say to all of the students with a very sort of tragic and ironic sense of irony, thank you, because this massive stimulus spending that we're seeing, even the forget about that. The government has doubled in size, but even the previous level of welfare spending, you could have all of the top tax, rates, 80%, whatever, on top 1%, top 10%. That's not even enough to cover just the welfare spending pre-crisis alone, and that is a debt. That is a debt. I don't know if you have student debts, but if you've ever had any experience with credit card debts, debt is real and it comes due, and it is going to be paid, and is going to be paid by your generation, and it is going to be paid. I can, tell Megan, the fact that, while you have peers that are just spending the coronavirus quarantine online, writing, nasty comments about capitalism, or just watching, binging on Netflix, or smoking pot, or being irresponsible. What you've made a different kind of choice. You've decided to help us organize these virtual conferences. You, before the virus, you were making choices. You were organizing on campus. You were doing things that meant that, in all likelihood, if I had to put a wager, I'm going to wager on your actually being successful in your life. So the ethics of altruism and the politics of socialism mean that you, because of your success, because of your preparedness, because of your industry, that you will be punished, and you deserve to be punished for your virtues, and that those who make other choices deserve to be rewarded for making those moral choices. So, and frankly, even if you decide to make other life choices, or it turns out, whatever, you have a disaster and you don't end up becoming a top earner, the fact that we are having so much infusions of government spending and printing of money right now, historically, that has showed that tends to have inflationary results, and that the inflation in turn will, even if you are at a more modest level of income, you will be pushed into that higher bracket, and they will get you one way or the other. So that's why I think it's really important to say no. This stops, and I have a right to my own life, and I have a right to my future, and don't destroy my future. Care
Yeah.
about.
And I mean, the event that we were originally going to have with you and a few other like well-known lawyers or assemblymen in the area was called The Value of Selfishness. And this was very frustrating for a lot of people. And this is kind of a twofold question. I know we don't have a lot of time, but how does the value of selfishness connect to objectivism and individualism? And that, and then on top of that, the main question I get from my Turning Point members has to do with big business, big corporations controlling the government. And is that a positive with Ayn Rand's philosophy? How do we negate that? Like, what should we do? What should we do from an Ayn Rand perspective?
Sure. Well, first of all, okay, let's go to the question of selfishness. Now, Ayn Rand, to me, first and foremost, was an artist. She created these incredible epics, these great science fiction tales. She imagined these worlds. She came up with these characters. She elaborated these plots. And she also, she had a style, and she also went for she even called them gimmicks, things that would capture people's attention, that would wake people up. One of them was her use of the dollar sign, that she used the dollar sign as a motif throughout Atlas Shrugged. Another was she used the word selfishness and the virtue of selfishness in a very provocative way. She was an artist, so she would take things. She wanted to shock people. She wanted to literally shock them out of their sort of stagnation and their sheep-like thinking to look at things in a different way. So, but it's hard for me to criticize Ayn Rand, but I think that in retrospect, selfishness really that's kind of is taken in the dictionary, and it's associated with taking advantage of other people and just thinking of yourself in a narrow, short-term kind of way. I think that's kind of selfless, because you in order to do things that are in your rational self-interest, it's important to do a lot of behaviors that might strike people as not selfish at all. It's important to be open. It's important to be tolerant. It's important to be generous. It's important to be respectful. So that all of those behaviors are in your rational self-interest. So I tend to think of it as rational self-interest and an open objectivism, which is the branch of objectivism that we promote here at the Atlas Society. We also elevate benevolence as a major virtue and consider it completely consistent, in fact necessary, to fulfilling your rational self-interest, is to having a benevolent entrepreneurial approach, a give and take to other people, and to being respectful of their views, so that you have more of an opportunity to engage with them as potential intellectual partners or trading partners or social partners, what have you. In terms of big business, the bigger the business, the bigger the cronyism. Okay, the more regulations, the more businesses that are going to be compelled to say, gosh, can I get some FaceTime with you to say that this regulation is hurting our business? And then also, we're going to subsidize this business, we're going to subsidize that business. I mean, then you have people that are now focused on, rather than, gee, how do we be competitive? How do we come up with a good product? They're focused on, can we get a little piece of the action in terms of the subsidies? So the more limited the government, the less likelihood that you're going to have the kind of cronyism that Ayn Rand, I think, captured precisely in Atlas Shrugged, in which there were some heroes that were businesses, but there were a lot of villains that were businessmen too. So, she was not about lionizing business people or lionizing labor. She was about the individual and its productive, creative capacity to realize their full potential.
Oh, that was brilliant. Okay, sorry, that was really good. So do we have more time? How much time do we have?
I think we have just a minute or two. We have about five minutes or so. So what did you want to ask about religion or?
Yeah, I would. I mean, this I am going to assume is a really complicated topic, but conservatives, a lot of them have a Christian foundation, right? And I believe Ayn Rand was an atheist, and so they've been grappling with that. So the question that I had here is that people argue that religion helped to establish a moral foundation, allowing for societies to exist. From Rand's perspective, how do we maintain society without that agreed upon moral compass?
Well, that's a great question, and one that we get a lot. And Ayn Rand had respect for religion. She, first of all, I think what differentiates her from other thinkers in the libertarian space was that she really felt that it was very important, that morality was very important. It was important
Mhm.
to have a moral defense of capitalism. And so she really believed that we needed a philosophy, a system of beliefs that would defend our own right to exist and also defend the free market system. So at the same time, I noticed here and there that I was finding that there were people that were really huge fans of Ayn Rand that were very religious. Charlie Kirk is one of them. Andy Puzder is one of them. He was our first honoree at our first annual gala. He required that each of his 6 children, devout Catholic, had to read, not just like Ayn Rand, but had to read The Fountainhead before they could even get their driver's license. Sam Sorbo, she's a great friend. She was the MC at last year's gala. She is an actress, a model, a advocate of homeschooling, and also a evangelical Christian. Very fierce Ayn Rand fan. So seeing all of this, I was grappling with it, and I wrote an op-ed called "Can You Love God and Ayn Rand?" I was absolutely astounded by the deluge of letters that I got thanking me for saying, yes, I mean, it's possible to really derive a lot of benefit from Ayn Rand's literature and to be inspired by the message, and also get a benefit from having a religion, belonging to a religious community. I got one letter, though, I will say, which was not a nice letter, and it was by one of the proponents of closed objectivism, and he said, only an idiot could possibly read Ayn Rand's novels and not get, the atheism part. And I thought, wow, well then I guess, my mother, who's a PhD, and my dad, who is a Yale and Columbia trained cardiologist, must be idiots because they read the novels. And my dad said, well, atheism wasn't the takeaway, for me, and he's a religious, observant Jew. He thought the takeaway was really about individualism, having to courage to stand up for yourself and stand up against, those who want to harm you in the name of the greater good, and having integrity, and promoting achievement and productivity and individualism and reason and science. And so, I would say though, when we look at where the virus has hit really hard, in terms of an argument for reason and individualism, look at Iran. Okay, that they were one of the hardest hit, and I think in part of it was because they did have a common moral compass, in their Sharia Islam, their Shiite Islam. Their revolution, a lot of people fled. Their best scientists, their best business people fled in advance of that revolution. And the system that they have in place with their moral compass is based on mysticism and not on merit. And so that some of the best minds, women are subjugated in that country because of religion, are not there to help to fight the virus. And I guess I would also say during this time of crisis, but also incredible response, incredible ideas, incredible research that's happening, that I would give a shout out to reason and the idea that there is a reality and it can be discovered by men of science. We're not going to just fast, although we may be fasting by default, and go and be in a cave or be on a mountainhead or be in a cell and discover the cure to coronavirus. That's going to happen through technological, entrepreneurial, and scientific innovation.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. But it's been an absolute honor getting to talk with you. If I had the opportunity to quarantine with you and talk with you about this for hours, I would. The last question.
We will.
The last question. If I was to recommend a book by Ayn Rand to get somebody just started on the path, I guess, which book would you have them start with, in your opinion?
Well, I don't know. Maybe this one. So, I honestly, I think we're running out of time, but I would say it really is based on the individual. Like, if you like comic books and graphic novels and you're not a big reader, Anthem, the graphic novel would be one. If you are a big reader and you are, Megan, and I have ambition and you want to go for it, go straight to Atlas Shrugged, because that's, the one book that you really should have under your belt. If you are not into fiction and you're more into nonfiction, then maybe go to Return of the Primitive or Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal. But if you're also one of those special few, there is a small select club of people who actually read her books in order. And so you might want to start with We the Living and then go to Anthem and then go to The Fountainhead onto Atlas Shrugged, because that's an interesting way to discover Rand, but also to just sort of follow her development, as an artist and as a woman in terms of her thinking.
Okay, thank you very much. Atlas Shrugged was my favorite, and it's the reason that I'm here today. Dagny Taggart's my idol, so
Dagny, hashtag Dagny Strong, right?
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me, and stay safe and inside and all that.
We will. All right. Bye. We'll see you at the other end of this. Okay.
Okay. Bye.